when he fills up the tub, he says, "Hey, Roxanne, get those jugs." She's already got them. Well, obviously, it's just a kobold. Obviously, kobolds are weak. It is so funny, no matter which kind of fantasy world you enter into and read into, it seems like each creator of those worlds sort of chooses which monsters are like really terrifying. Because I did laugh at this whole scenario. I think it was really funny. I think this is the first time I've laughed throughout the entire series, honestly. It's just this moment where, yes, he sees a kobold, which is a boss in front of him, and he's obviously being very cautious. And Roxanne's like, well, it is a kobold. Goes over there, this big dramatic attacks, and she's just kind of dodging it and going, well, it is a kobold. But my mind immediately went to, after I laughed, my mind immediately went to Grimgar Fantasy and Ash, and I'm like, yeah, the experience that we had with the kobolds in that first season wasn't too positive, so I don't know, these kobolds seem completely different. I don't know, maybe it's the difference between a kobold these look like goblins, honestly. These look like goblins, and kobolds I'm used to being like wolfish type creatures, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those weird oddities about what each creature is in different fantasy worlds. But additionally, I want to say the writer needs to apologize to anybody and everybody who has ever created either a fence or a farm, because how in the world did Meikyuu and Roxanne put together an entire crop field and a fencing to go around it in like half a day? Like, because they spent their first time of the day, they went out to the Labyrinth, they spent some time there in the lobby, then they went inside there, they beat the first boss, they went to the next floor, and then they teleported over to the shop in order to get some stuff, and then they went back home. So I'm assuming they spent about half their day elsewhere, and then half the day they managed to put together this entire thing. So granted, I don't know, the light novel could have gone into the details about how this was probably a multi-day process, but it sort of made it out that this was a single day. But yes, apologize. Apologize. It's not that easy, but sure. I mean, I guess you can argue that, you know, they used their skills and like use rush or something like that to make the fills, but they never showed it. So I can assume that everything was manually done. She's hand scraped every single fence post. But no, overall, decent episode. I think the big positive thing that I get from episode 9 of Isekai Harem is a hopeful answer to my plea last episode. Last episode impressions, I was extremely frustrated at that point that I'm just tired of Meikyuu and Roxanne. Like, their chemistry is just not really there. It's subservient, and I need to do everything possible to make sure I keep this what I have right now. Let's build up the house. Let's get a wash tub. It's not that interesting. The chemistry's just not there. The story's just not there. The character backgrounds, all that kind of stuff is just not there. So all we're really getting is a single person harem, which isn't that interesting. Harems are typically this idea of having multiple characters with multiple chemistries, multiple personalities, and they clash. And you sort of get situations out of that. This Isekai Harem, where it's just literally a main character and one girl who will do anything for him, doesn't do anything after 8 episodes. At some point, we gotta move on. Granted, it wasn't 8 episodes. He got her like, what, episode 3 or 4 or whatever. But yes, at the very end of this episode, after Roxanne got harmed, he finally decides, I need another party member. I need somebody else in the front line. I can't keep putting Roxanne in danger, which is kind of disheartening, this idea that he's obviously becoming very, very, very attached to Roxanne, and any thought of her getting injured really does upset him. And we've kind of seen this throughout the episodes. Like I was saying, it's just really Roxanne following him and picking up twigs. She's not doing anything. And that's mainly because it seems like he wants to not put her in harm. He even went out of his way to get healing spells just so that he can help her. So it's kind of weird to think that at this point he's so attached to Roxanne, he wants to get somebody else as a fighting member, and I'm going to assume, full-on assumption here, that means, hopefully, next episode he immediately goes to Alan and says, I need another girl. I need another fighter girl in my front lines. So I need to put another girl in the front line to take hits, rather than Roxanne. But then I'll probably get attached to her, and then I'm not going to want her to get harmed, and then I'll probably get another harem member so I can have another one in the front line so that those two don't get... Anyways, it's a vicious cycle. This is the biggest plot of Alan. We, at this point, can confirm that Alan's whole plan was to give Meikyuu a fighting girl that he will get attached to. He immediately was in love with Roxanne, and he knew at that point, excellent. He's going to put her in the front line, she's going to get hurt, and then he's going to want somebody else, and he's going to come right back to here, and we'll sell him another girl, and then he'll go out there again. This guy is gonna buy out my entire business. But anyway, yeah, that last comment was like, yes, thank you, finally. I mean, we kind of alluded it already that he wanted to get a blacksmith, but then that went away. Like, he wanted somebody to, do blacksmithing on his equipment, and Roxanne's like, yeah, you can't really trust blacksmiths. They can say that it worked, but it didn't, or they can break your equipment, whatever. And he's like, well, okay, we just need to get one for our party. That was his answer. And it's like, well, are we going to get like a lolly dwarf girl or something in a group? I don't know. It just kind of went to the wayside. And again, we kept this current chemistry, which is just not doing it. It's just this, they're boring together at this point. Yes, for this episode, they went to the labyrinth. At this point, he did find out that the furthest somebody's ever gotten in this labyrinth is the 91st floor. They have not gotten to the boss. Even though this has been around for a long time and it's very huge, nobody's beat it yet. It was kind of funny because as they enter the labyrinth, it's obviously hugely crowded. And we've established in the previous episodes that the boss room itself is very GRP-ish. If you walk into there and another party is in there, the doors won't close and the boss won't appear. And so everybody's kind of taking turns. Like, there's a line. He even makes a joke about it in this episode. Is this like a theme park ride? Everybody's taking their turn going up there. And at some point he looks back and he's like, man, people keep coming. And I had a brief moment here where I was like, they pointed out this guy that was right behind Meikyuu. I was like, okay, so is this guy going to interact with Meikyuu? And all he does is say, what's going on? And then Michio's like, oh, sorry, nothing. And he moves on. I was like, watch this guy walk in the room with them. And we have our first gamified version of essentially a griefer, an actual griefer in this world. In a JRPG, in an MMORPG, what would be the first thing? What would the thing you would see happen all the time if this was the mechanic in that world? Griefers. You would have somebody stand in that room, and I was expecting this. I was expecting somebody to go in that room with them and stand there. And then Michia's like, hey, boss is not going to appear until you get out. We're going to do the boss first. And then they go, well, give me some money. Like, you want me to leave? Give me some money. Like, it's the perfect, like, if I was in that world, I would totally want to do that. If I couldn't make money any other way, I would disguise myself and I would go in those rooms and stand there and go, pay up and I'll leave. Now, I'd have to be very confident in myself because I don't know what the aspects of, I would assume you could be attacked. I mean, Meikyuu killed a bunch of bandits. I'd assume I can get attacked, but would they want to attack me? Because if they attack me, would it register them as a murderer? Because technically I didn't do anything illegal in the world itself. My mind went to a million directions, but whatever. But it did make me think, man, that's griefable. Like, that could totally be exploited for money. But yeah, that's when we have the cobalt fight. It is a cobalt. This over-dramatic swing. Dead. It is a cobalt. I got a huge laugh. Like I said, I think that's probably the first time in the entire series I've laughed. And that's kind of scary to think about. Granted, this isn't really technically classified as a comedy, but it is kind of goofy in respect. I mean, there's a little bit of inside chuckle, but nothing really outwardly. That was the first time I really laughed at this show. Somebody brought this up, and then somebody brought this up last episode, and I could not get it out of my head this episode. It's just there was this comment made in the last episode about this lady wanting to sell him hose. And sure enough, when this episode comes around, they're like, oh, we got to go get the seeds, and then we got to go plant them. And then Michio's looking at the hose on the wall. And the entire time I'm thinking about this, like, Roxanne's like, no, those hose would be a waste of money. It got in my head, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. The show didn't make me laugh, but I don't know. Maybe that. Now, granted, they don't call them hose in Japan. We call them that, so we get the joke. I don't know if they did that because they know from an English translation it's funny, but it was dumb. It was really dumb. But yeah, in the end, Meikyuu did buy a hoe from the lady at the shop, and Roxanne was really happy that he bought her that hoe. I'm gonna move on. Yes, he bought the bathtub, which was expected. I did technically, that somebody pointed out last episode that was kind of a mistranslation, that this other room that had a toilet was not a toilet. It was just plumbing. So that makes sense that when he got that bucket, he was essentially able to create a huge bathhouse out of it, which again makes you wonder, was somebody in that house before, knew about Japanese culture and about bathhouse, and they wanted to create that? The question mark still remains there is what was the point of that room from the previous owner's perspective? Meikyuu, it's convenient. He's able to create his bathhouse, and he's able to have his bath time fun with Roxanne, which was interesting. Gets a body scrub. No, I'll admit, there was another scene that I kind of got a laugh out of. More of a chuckle, but yes, technically. Roxanne with the stew in her mouth, and her going, this is delicious. He's like, please don't say that with your mouth open. And then she starts saying, "Not gonna work hard tomorrow," and she still got it in her mouth like she won't swallow it. He's like, "Please swallow that." There was so many parts of this episode that are like translation jokes. When he fills up the tub, he says, "Hey, Roxanne, get those jugs." She's already got them. Okay, that was cheesy. Okay, I'm gonna stop. It was interesting how he came to the conclusion that he did need another party member. The fact that, yes, this monster did technically make him go to sleep. He didn't specifically say it, but it's insinuated that because this beast, which at the time he was going after this beast, he totally flagged it, by the way. As he's going towards this beast, he's thinking to himself, look, I don't fear these beasts anymore. Maybe I've gotten used to this world. But no, now that I realize it, it's Roxanne. The reason why I'm not afraid is because Roxanne just charged in there. She doesn't complain or anything. She just goes right in there. But he's curious at what point he's going to run into some beast that will actually have movements that impress Roxanne. Like, who's going to challenge Roxanne? When are we going to get to a point where we go to a fight and Roxanne doesn't charge in or something like that? To that effect. Not necessarily that she won't attack, but that she's going to be thrown off. Something that's going to challenge her. But yes, that's when he gets put to sleep, and then he wakes up and Roxanne is injured, and he immediately goes to do rush attacks to rebuild his mana while he heals her at the same time. And it sort of implies this idea that he was put to sleep by this mob, and the only reason that Roxanne got harmed was probably because she shielded him. Because if he's standing there asleep, she's not going to let him get hit. That's obviously a free hit. He said, oh man, that's scary, because if you get put to sleep, that's a guaranteed hit for your opponent. Because you're just going to stand there, you're going to take a hit, you'll wake up, but you'll take a hit. And it sort of implies that Roxanne took those hits for him. That's the only reason that she got hurt. So it was kind of an interesting way of kind of pushing him that, yes, add another Harem member already, please. Yeah, that concludes the episode with the bath scene, which it was kind of funny to kind of, I don't know, assume that he got alchemy just so that he can create soap. Just to fulfill one of his fantasies. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 9 of Isekai Harem. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the episode. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon, or throw a tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that does. And y'all take care.